Alright, so today we're going to build a composite video cable for the Atari 8-bit line of computers. This is the Atari 8-bit line right here. You have the 400, which had the membrane keyboard, and you had the 800. This was in the early 80s that had a normal keyboard. Yeah, this was my first computer, was the 400. I spent many nights typing in programs from magazines, learning how to write BASIC and then assembly code. Just an amazing machine. Playing games also. Here's another ad, basically the same time period. In fact, that says at the very bottom there, copyright 1979. Another one showing how it could be used for your stocks, of course. And then here another one. So it had no hard drive. It had a floppy drive, 5 1/4. And then it also had a tape, and this was a little printer. Of course, that didn't come with any of that. And one of the games I loved to play was Seamus. This was one of the games I was really hooked on, Seamus, for the longest time. So what we're going to build today is that I took this photo. This is the side of an Atari 800. I just bought an Atari 800, kind of, I don't know, relived my childhood. And this is the video output. It also has an RF output, like the old RF conversion boxes you used to hook onto the antenna on TVs. But we're going to make a composite video cable. You have luminance, you have composite video, ground, chroma, and audio out. What we're going to do is we're going to use ground, we're going to use composite video, and the audio out for left and right audio. And I'll show you how we build this cable, and then we'll go test it. So before we head over to the bench to make this cable, let me show you what I started with. I decided not to start from scratch. I actually found this on Monoprice. It's already got shielded cable. It's already got the nice RCA outputs. So it's pretty much got everything we need. We're going to clip the head of this off, and we're going to wire in a 5-pin DIN. I'll show you how we do that. Yeah, so $349. You can't even buy the wire for that price. I don't remember what shipping was. I did have to pay it, but this is what I used. But I'll talk to you at the bench. You can use other pieces too. I mean, you can use just pretty much anything you need, as long as it's shielded. So, all right. So with that, let's head over to the bench, and we will start putting one together. Okay, so we're at the bench, and we are going to build a composite video cable for the Atari. This is the Monoprice cable that I mentioned from the computer that we're going to use as our base, just to start at. I got my first Atari computer for my birthday, probably 81 or 82. My mom made a sacrifice. She was divorced, had 2 kids, and she bought me my first Atari 400. I think it was, one of those sacrifices that a mom makes for her kids and kind of really pays off. This is the VGA cable. Paid off because I turned into a software engineer, basically. I have a lot of electronics experience as well. This is the VGA, and so this is the Monoprice cable. We're going to cut that off. We're going to save a little bit of the wire from the cable so that we can maybe reuse it for something else. I always throw these in my junk box. You should have a junk box if you don't have one. These are the 5-pin DIN connectors, which plug into the Atari. This is the layout that I showed you earlier. We're looking at getting the composite video signal. We're looking at getting the ground, and we're going to take the left and right audio, and we're going to put them into one audio, basically. So the one audio coming out of the Atari will go to left and right audio. It's still mono, but it'll have a channel, left and right channels. This comes off. Let's see here. It kind of goes together, and there's a connector on the inside. So what we want to do now is cut off some shielding. If you kind of look at this, you can see how it's supposed to kind of fit together here. You want to remove some shielding. The easiest way to do that is with an X-Acto knife. Try not to cut too deeply. The more you do it, the better you get at it. So yes, I got really into Atari computers. I got into computers in general. Spending late nights typing in software from books, learning BASIC, learning assembler. I used to hang around a computer store in Melbourne, Florida called Computer Haven. And while I was doing that, I was also starting high school and getting very much into electronics and amateur radio. This was in the 80s. So this is the outside shielding, which is a really good sign. This is a good cable. It's got outside shielding, which you can see. This is probably not solderable. It might be hard to solder that. Then you got this inside foil wrapper, and then you got this thing called a drain wire. Now the drain wire is interesting because it actually touches all this running down, so it works as a great ground basically. It ties the foil and the shielding and everything together from what's on the inside. Now one of the things we're going to need to do is, if you remember from the diagram, we do have a ground. We want to tie all those grounds together so everything is at the same ground potential when it comes to the composite video and the audio out. So what we're going to do is we are going to remove this foil. Make sure that everything is kind of wound up together, and then we want to clean this stuff up. These little fibrous hairs, man, they get into everything. And the next thing you know, you've got these little fibrous hairs, and your cable's not working right sometimes when it's bent or tweaked over. And it's all because you got these little problems in there from these little fibers that are shorting things out. Okay, so now we've got red, green, and blue. And I happen to know that they do match up with the red, green, and blue. If you don't believe me, you can probe it out yourself with a multimeter. So we're going to cut back some of the wire, and I know what we're going to find already. We're going to find some shielding. So we got some shielding in there, which is just awesome. I mean, these are good cables. For $3, $4, whatever I paid for them, $3.60. So you want to go ahead and twist that up as best you can. You don't want to get any of those fibers. And in the inside here is going to be another wire. We'll get to that one in just a minute. Let's get the red. Take a little more than that off. There we go. Again, let's clean up all these fibers. So I started hanging out at a computer store, Computer Haven, and started going to the local Atari club meetings and trying to learn as much as I could. Man, I was like a sponge. I wanted to be able to write code, and that's what really I've done most of my life from that point forward. I studied electronics in high school, and I was going to go for a double E, but instead I got into computers. But my electronics background has been very helpful in some cases. Some of the software that I write is used by embedded systems, so sometimes talking to those engineers makes it easier. Plus I just like messing around with electronics too, building things. Okay, so there's our center. So each of these is going to have its own little center. We want to tighten those up too. Put all the fibers together. There's another one. And then we've got this one. Okay. So let's make sure that all this is centered up so you can see everything well. Before we get too much further, we want to make sure that we put this covering on here. If you don't, then you end up basically having to start all over again. So to make this fit, they designed this so that you can actually cut these. I happen to know that we need to cut it 5 down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to cut it 5. Then I'm going to put all this up here together as best I can. Try to slide this on without messing up too much of my job here. I'm gonna, let's see, come on. There it is. Twist it on. There it is. Nice and tight too. Okay. So now let's push that down a little bit and go back and make sure that everything is cleaned up. And then we're going to tin it all so it's easy to install. Now, one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to take that drain wire and we're going to connect that to ground, and then everything else is going to connect to that. So if we look at our diagram here to understand what we're trying to do, this is the right direction. This is how it goes into the computer. So this middle one here, which they call 2, is actually the ground. The next one, this one, would be, the next one to the right would be the composite video. That's what we want. And then we also want the audio here. So what we're going to do is we are going to tie all the grounds together, which are all those outside shielding wires. And then we're going to solder the drain wire into number 2, into that connection. So tying all these together. Now I don't know if it's best to do this first or last. We do need to make sure that the ground, that this wire's it's already touching this. So we can actually clip this off, throw it away. Because we've already got a connection all the way down to that outer shielding. But what we want to do is to come up here and tie it in. So now they're all connected and together. Let's clean this up a little bit better here. Try not to get that all over the place. Okay. So now I'm going to solder this. I do have a little hand tool here, which might help out. So what I'm doing is I'm heating it up, the wires, and I'm letting this flow onto it. There we go. That's pretty good. We're going to snip a little off. And then we're going to, in just a moment, connect that to ground, hopefully. Each of these other ones, we're also going to tin and connect to where they should be. So let's tin those real quick. Okay. Actually, it looks pretty good. So now what we want to do is we want to connect these. Now we happen to know that this is going to be ground because it's number 2. So let's go ahead and put a little bit of solder on that one. And now let's go ahead and try to switch this out. See if we can do it this way. Now what we want to do, it might be hard to see, but I am soldering the ground to pin 2. That actually looks pretty good. Okay, and then the next thing to do, if we look at our composite, it's going to be, the diagram. We're going to see composite video in 4. So let's go ahead and we're going to use green as composite video. And again, let's go ahead and pre-solder some into these connectors. So that would be this one. So anyway, I got into electronics in high school, got into computers, did a lot of electronic stuff, got into amateur radio, and then got a job doing software. I don't like that. Let's clean that up a bit. Let's heat it up. Let's remove it. You got to be your own critic here when you do this. You have to remember what it is you're trying to do and the quality that you need it to be at. Okay, so that looks good. Okay. So now, the next one, if we look at the plug, it's going to be this upper corner here, this last one. We're going to do the audio to. I'm going to put a little bit of solder there. Okay. Move the blue. Blue's a little bit longer, just by chance. So I'm going to put the blue inside there, if I can. Helps sometimes to have a third hand tool. Cut off just a little bit. I didn't like the connection. Okay. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to bring the red up through the middle here so it's not being pushed, underneath anything. So let's bring that up. Pick tool can help a lot in these kind of situations. It doesn't look like it's going to let us because, let's see if I can just get that. Okay, I see what we've got to do. Yeah, that's not going to happen. So what we can do is just kind of roll it over there, get close to the blue, solder it on. Okay, let's take a look at that. And I don't like that. Fix it. Again, you got to be your own critic. If it's not a good solder joint, it's not a good solder joint. It needs to be fixed. It's as simple as that. Tell you what, let's do this. Let's tie both of these together. That probably makes more sense. Okay, now let's just have one going to the audio. And we should have it here in just a second. Ah, perfect. Alright, that was a better way of doing it. Alright, so that's pretty much it. We've got ground, we've got composite video, we've got audio, and we've left luminance and chroma out. So that should be what we need. Let's put it back together again here. And I think that goes on the top up here. Let's see. Put it back together. Yes, I think this is the way it goes. Slides into here, I believe. No? Okay. Alright. So I think it goes here. On the bottom. Well, all this work and you can't put it back together again. Okay. That looks correct to me. Squeeze those in there if we want. Squeeze them closed. And this goes on top. Yes. Yep. Okay. Okay, there we go. We got to squeeze together. So now, let's see. I'm going to squeeze these on there, and I'm going to slide this cover back over the top to squeeze it all together. Keep it where it's supposed to be. Okay, and then I think we have to turn it. Yep. Slide it on top. Okay, that is it. That is a cable. So we should be able to take this cable now, go and plug it in, and hopefully no smoke pours out of it. And we should be able to get audio and video, composite video out of the Atari 8-bit computer. All right, cool. I'll see you in the basement area where I've got the computer and a TV set up so we can test it. All right, cool. Okay, we're in my basement workshop. This is the Atari 800. Awesome computer. And we've got a TV here. And if we take a look, the TV does have the composite video. So I'm going to hook it up and we're going to see what happens here. Hopefully we get no smoke. Okay, so let's take the composite video cable that we just made. We're going to plug it in. Okay, and then I'm going to hook it, let's see here. Green's the video, and then we've got blue and white, which is really blue and red here. Turn the TV on, and turn the computer on. I brought the remote in case I need to switch the inputs on the TV. Let me turn the TV on. Thought it was on. Oh, okay. That took a while. AV. So it's got an AV signal. There it is. All right, so our cable is working. We should be able to put in a classic, I hope. Pac-Man! All right, so we made an AV cable. Wasn't rocket science. We'll go back to the bench. I'll talk about it again a little bit more because it might be hard to see me soldering and doing all this stuff, but it's pretty easy to put together. All right, cool. So with that, I guess I should play Pac-Man? I don't know. Oh, do I have any audio? Doesn't sound like I have any audio. There we go. I just had it plugged into the wrong input. Alright, cool. So it is working. Alright, great. Alright, I'm going to turn it off. We'll go back to the bench. I'll walk you through a little bit of it again, and that should be good. Okay, so we're back at the bench. What we got is we made a composite video cable for the Atari 800. It should work on a 400, probably the 800 XL. Pretty much any of them that have a composite video output signal. We started off by using a monoprice cable, which I'll give you the link for at the bottom of the video. I bought some 510 DIN connectors off of eBay. You should be able to find them on eBay without any issue. or find another cable that has them and cut it off. And then we've got this screenshot, or I'm sorry, this photograph I made where I've outlined all the pinouts. So we basically cut back the cable, exposed the insulation, soldered it all up, ground to ground, composite video to composite video, and I took the two left and right audio channels, put them together, and those go to input number 3. And that was pretty much all there was to it. We used a multimeter to check continuity on the wires to make sure that we didn't have anything crossed over before we plugged it in, and then we went and plugged it in and made it work. That's all there is to it. If you have any questions or comments, add them below. Consider subscribing, I guess. If not, that's cool. All right, so with that, take it easy.